Hi guys, welcome back to episode 3, which is mid basses. I know a lot of people wanted us to move on to this onto this section. I'm quite keen for us to move on to this. And as I said before, when with bass lines, because it's such a rabbit hole, I was going to break it down for you. Now I showed you the sub, and I wanted to show you what we'd done in this particular track, Anything Is Possible, that I wrote with Rob Newspirit last year, that was released in January this year. Now, the interesting thing about this is why I wanted to show it to you is because with trance music, you've obviously, the most common things are the offbeat or the rolling, galloping bass line. And with this particular track, when I turn around to people and they ask me about how we did the low end, and I say to them, well, we didn't use any rolling, galloping mid basses. They're like, really? So you know, it does have that effect in it, but we didn't. And that's why I thought this one would be quite interesting for people to see, because the intro section of the track starts with an offbeat. And then it goes into reverse bass, big fat drop, quite techy. That's been quite popular sound over the last year or so, and then into the big trance riff, where a lot of people think that there is a rolling, galloping mid basses in there, and there aren't. It's just offbeat. It's just the way in which we layered the mid bass sounds and to make them fat. So I'm going to go through this as quickly as I can, because this is these obviously, when you're going through these bassline things, these can go on for so long. The last one I did just on the sub went on for 15 minutes. So the track itself, just to give you a quick insight again for the track, for those that may not have heard it. Intro section.
I can feel you now.
Into the break. Then into the big fat uplifting section.
World without rules and controls, without
big fat uplifting section. Reverse bass. Into the big riff.
World where anything is possible.
Okay, so how the bass line sounds, it's like this. This is the intro section of the track. Got a mid bass one, which is made up in silent and is doing delay, which is quite a nice delay on there, a bit of distortion on there. Then wanted that mid bass to have a very similar sounding one underneath it, but just doing a punch with no delay. But wanted a nice bit of chorus on there just to give it that width. Now what I have done is I've got saturation on it again, like we did before, but slightly different bandwidths on there, boosting with warm tube saturation. And also got R bass on there as well. R bass on there just to give it a nice bit of a little boost the bass and warmth again. Overall roundness of the sound, which is great. This is from Waves, and it's a lovely plugin. Just make sure that you don't overdo it on R bass. Then I've got a top runner which goes over the top of it. 3 of them together. Then the interesting thing here, whereas a lot of bass lines use a saw wave, we've used a square wave, and here it is on its own. Ooh. Put that with your saw wave mid basses. getting quite an interesting spectrum of sound there with your kick all together. Okay. So let me put that on as well. Together. Whole track together.
I can feel you now.
Loved that. Loved that. So yeah, there's a little there's a little cool thing there, man. Putting square waves into your tracks, you know, is it's quite a nice different dimension to the mid bass sounds, and then going into the drop, and everyone really loved this drop. We were fucking buzzing when we were making this drop.
Rules and controls without borders or boundaries.
Here we go.
A world where anything is possible.
Finger pointing. Now this is this what I call secondary bass lines, where basically, you know, I've separated them out. These ones are reverses, so on their own. Now you can buy sample packs of basses that have been reversed. You can do it yourself. You can, you know, get a bassline sound and record it and then reverse it, but bounce it down into freeze it and flatten it, bounce it down into audio and reverse it. You can do a nice other cool little trick with it, which is get the actual sound itself and draw out your bass line so it's hitting on the beat, and plays. Let me just take this off for a minute, and plays like this. People might have done this already. It's no new trick here. This is just something that I did as a quick way of creating a reverse bass. Same on this one. That's hitting on the beat. Then I got an LFO tool. Reversed it. And then once you've done that, you take it, you bounce it down into audio, like I've done here with this one. You've got your reverse bass style. It was just something. It was experimenting with this, man. You know, it just wanted to see what it came out like doing it this way. Can you see how it's it's doing, just with using a cut off a side chained LFO tool, it's created that effect. The same one on this one. I'll turn that off. Just an interesting way of doing it. There's nothing secret here or weird and wonderful. It's just a different way of experimenting, and it works, because all those bass sounds together and sitting in different frequency ranges created this like crazy sound. But then when you put it in the track, let me turn off the leads, the main leads, not those ones. Bear with me. Just sounded crazy. So yeah, we just we were experimenting, man, and that's how it came out. Just one thing to go back to, and then it goes back into offbeats again. And that's the tune, man. That is how we did the mid basses on this particular track, and as I said to you, there's no written rule on mid basses, no written rule on any music production. This is just how we did this one. This is what I wanted to show you. I've written so many different tracks, and I've experimented in different ways with mid basses and doing different things, different patterns. I'll show you that when I do because I'm going to do 2 stages for this. It's going to be part 1 on mid basses and part 2 on mid basses. This one is just offbeats and reverses, and how you can experiment with reverses on drops and things like that people have been doing. If you want to do that sort of like emptied out techie drop, you can experiment with doing it that way, or you can just obviously record the bass and reverse it into audio. I just found I could mess around a little bit more with the MIDI when I did it this way. There are other ways of doing this, by the way, so please don't jump on and start saying, oh, you can do it this way, you can do that. I know that there's many different ways in which you can do it. I'm just showing you guys one way in which you could mess around, just another little cool technique, which is what these videos are about really for you, for those that are starting out, are getting into writing trance music. It's just great for those people, not for the people that are long in the tooth and been doing this for a long time. So with the bass, with the mid basses, what I will go into quickly is just where I sort of cut off. What I will do sometimes is to push edges. I won't go crazy on the EQ on my mid basses, because the sounds, you don't want to push the sounds too much with EQ. You could really ruin the low end, and a lot of people do push the sound of mid basses too much, I find sometimes, and then they come through and sound really metallic-y, or they're sounding really overpowering, and your track is being overpowered full on by the mid basses. Turn your level down when you're making your track. Remember, turn your level right down and listen to what's standing out in the track, because when I get demos come through, I'm turning the level down in my studio here to listen to it, to see whether it's a good enough finish of a track. And you can hear whether the levels of the track are wrong, because they've probably made the track too loud. They've not listened to the levels of the track, and a lot of the time it's either the hats are kicking too hard, or the mid basses are just fucking way overpowered, and standing out like a sore thumb, or they make them really wide, too wide, that that they're ruining the whole of the stereo spectrum and the balance of the track with that side of things. So I will always have a curve of 18 dB, and I will cut off around about 200, between 150 and 300, in that range. I'll be varying it depending on the sound, and I'll be making that the sound source is most of the time is stuff that I've created from scratch. I'll create my mid basses from scratch. Again, that's a topic for another day, and there are lots of tutorials out there. Let's have a look at mid bass 2. Where did I cut that off? Let's see. I've hardly done. There's no EQing hardly at all to it. 250 on that one. I'm 223 on that one. I've given it a little bit of a push on the sides, just a little bit, because that one's got the top runner, and it's got a bit of chorus in there, and I quite liked how it was coming through the speakers. I'm not overdoing my mid basses. I'm not pushing them too hard. I'm getting the levels sitting right in the mix. I'm using my spectrum analyzer to use this. Either I use Span or I use Ozone's spectrum analyzer. And the reason why I want to show this one in all of my videos, because it's free. And people don't want to be spending too much money on plugins, and if they can make the music good enough with free plugins, certainly things that just analyze the sound, so you can actually see a visual on it. Apart from that, yeah, like, I'm coming up to 15 minutes again. I hope that helps. This is only part one. This is just showing offbeats as a very quick insight. I hope it helps. I didn't have time to go into compression on this particular one, but I just wanted to show you how I layered out my mid basses on this track with Rob, which, as I say, got really good, really well received, played out by some great DJs on the circuit, with some great feedback, and some great video footage of it being dropped in clubs, so it's brilliant, and and it sounded great. We were well pleased with it, and we're glad you were too. So thanks guys, until next time, part 2, mid basses using the rolling and a few other techniques on that side of things. Cheers guys, all the best.